Was good, y'all? Beatgenerals.com back with a brand new tutorial. In this tutorial, I'll be showing you guys the making of a beat I did recently inspired by Travis Scott's Butterfly Effect. The original was produced by Murder Beats from Canada, and I don't know about y'all, but the beat and melody kind of stay stuck in my head. What I liked most about the track though was the bounce of the melody, so I started out with a similar melody loop and then I built my own sample around it to make it what you hear in my finished beat. All the sounds in this are from a new bank for Massive we're releasing over at studiosounds.com next week called Night Owl. This bank is Travis Scott influenced. A ton of you guys have been asking for this, so it's finally coming. All my VIP members, you guys will get all the sounds I used in this and the FLP exclusively, so make sure you download that now. I also included a nice coupon for anyone who wants to grab the full bank next week when it drops. Without further talking, let's go ahead and jump into this beat. So the first sound that I actually started off with is from the Night Owl Bank, and it's a pad sound called Chords. And the scale that I use for this is just a C sharp minor. Travis Scott, you know, it's probably going to be a minor most of the time, just because his sound is a little bit darker. So I started with a C sharp, and basically the first thing I did was lay down a chord. So it was basically this: C sharp, E, G sharp. Okay, then I wanted to kind of mimic that little kind of step down, or that kind of melody that kind of plays downward in theirs, which was, I guess, to me kind of the catchy part of the track. So what I did with it was I started with the F sharp and then I went down to the D sharp. So it kind of sounds something like this right now. Okay, and the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and for this next little step, you could technically play another chord here, but I wanted to keep it slightly more open because I felt this was a little full. So what I did for this little second step, instead of hammering another chord in there, I just played kind of like a half chord type thing. So I just added a B, and then I felt like the cool part of that melody again was the step down, and then kind of the part where it kind of slightly comes up. So I wanted to kind of mimic that part as well. So what I did there was I just added an E, and I went up to a G sharp to have something like this. Okay, then let's go ahead and hold Control and then hold Shift, and we can just go ahead and drag this over. So we have something like this right now. It's basically obviously just the same thing doubled up, but what I want to do next is I want to build like a little higher melody on top. So let's go ahead and jump to the next section. I'll show you guys what the notes and the thinking behind that was. So the next thing I actually wanted to do was I wanted to add kind of a higher section on the second part. And the reason I kind of wanted to do that was lately I've just kind of gotten into the habit of kind of stacking my sounds inside of the sounds, if it kind of makes any sense. Like playing stuff on different octaves. Usually I would go ahead and divide it up and maybe play, like take a second sound and play that higher part. But lately I've just kind of liked the way it sounds with one sound kind of starting out plain, kind of how it is right here with just the chords, and then a second little higher section coming in on top. And then it also kind of makes sequencing easier a little bit later, just because by itself it kind of naturally switches. So even though it's an easy loop, it kind of sounds a little bit longer than it actually is. But let me go ahead and show you what the notes are for the top end. Basically what I started off with was an E, and these are going to be slightly lower than these, so I'm going to go ahead and just turn this down slightly, not by much. So it's going to basically do this, go down to the E flat again, then we're going to go up to the F sharp, and then we're going to come back down to the E. So we kind of end up with something like this. All right, and then for the second section, we're going to go ahead and continue this E again. Then we're going to go back down, E flat, E flat. Then we're going to move it back up to the F sharp and move it back down to the E. So basically not really a huge change, but here's what it kind of sounds like now. Alright, and all I did right there was just move this slightly out, just so that chord doesn't cut off with this higher note. It was kind of drowning it out, so all I did was just kind of move it into its own little pocket so it plays properly. But yeah, so this is kind of what I started off with. So let's jump in the next section. I'll show you guys what I layered. So what I did here is I have pattern 1 laid out, which is just a little pad pattern that we just created. And now on pattern 2, I have 2 different bass patches loaded up from the Night Owl Bank. The first one is just a detuned sub 2, and the second one was just called the Fat Man. And they're just 2 different bass sounds. This one has a little bit more edge to it. And this is just that kind of nice detuned sub that you hear in a lot of records. And basically we're just going to go ahead and layer these. And it's actually real simple. We're going to just start with the C sharp, which is just our root note from our chord. And then we're going to literally just take the B. And this is literally all we're going to keep repeating with the bass. So let's go over here and do that. C, C sharp, B, C sharp, B. And then in between here, we're going to just do like a little slide down. So we're going to use the F sharp and an E, F sharp, E, to kind of have something like this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go back, hit Control C. I'll make sure the pattern is up, and then Control V to go ahead and paste it. And then we're going to go ahead and move this down 1 octave. So Control and our down arrow to move it down 1 octave. And now when they're combined, this is what they sound like. And when you combine it with the pad sound, this is kind of what you get. That bass just kind of adds a nice little aggression, and kind of later when we filter the whole sample, it's going to add kind of like a harmonic tone to it. I've tried remaking the beat twice now, I believe, this week before I did the tutorial, because I was so paranoid about the sample sounding kind of weird, and every time I took the bass out, it just didn't sound the same. So this bass is kind of an important part, excuse me, but as you guys saw, it's pretty simple to add in there. And even if you didn't do the sample thing, it just gives you a nice aggressive Travis Scott type vibe, so it's a nice little layer between those two. But anyway, let's go ahead and jump to the next section and continue. So the next sound I have loaded up, it's actually a pluck sound. It's the Beebs intro. You guys will probably recognize it from the Beebs in the Trap track by Travis Scott and Nav. So I added just a quick little melody section with it basically, and it's kind of high, but it starts with a G sharp, and then it goes down to a C sharp, and then the second one is just a B coming down to a G sharp. So it's just this. And I don't think I had those turned all the way up, so let's go ahead and turn these down slightly. And when we add this in here, this is basically what we get. All right, so to me that just had kind of a strong, powerful feel, was kind of similar slightly to the track, but I still wanted to kind of just take it in a whole different direction. So let's jump into the next section. I'll show you guys the effects I had on top of this to kind of get the sample that I've been talking about the whole time basically.